What's up guys, today we're going to be going over 3 of the best exotic special weapons in the game, first being the Chaperone, which just got a 30% buff along with all the other slugs in the game. Then we're going to be also going over Izanagi's burden, and then also the 4th Horseman. So 3 of the biggest exotic special weapons in the game. We'll be going over their DPS, total damage output, and which is better for different scenarios in the game. And also we will be breaking down one other legendary slug in the game, then also a cool kind of silly Chaperone build I made. So first starting off with the Chaperone, it's only have a damage perk called the Roadborn. Precision kills briefly grant bonus handling, range, and precision damage with this weapon. So we're going to look at DPS numbers with and without that perk. So looking at the damage on Greg without the perk, we're going to hit for 24,549. Now if we go ahead and get a precision kill right before, we get the Roadborn for 10 seconds, and now it goes up to 30,098. And that isn't the only thing that this perk does, it also increases the rate of fire. First shooting 5 shots without the perk, it takes 3.321 seconds. Now we go ahead and get a precision kill, then shoot all 5 shots again. It's going to be a lot quicker, as you'll see. So not only does it increase the damage, it will also increase the rate of fire. And now those 5 shots take 2.136 seconds, meaning it shoots 35.7% quicker. Then also the damage increase was 22.6%. So there's going to be 2 different things helping the DPS of this weapon. So over 1 magazine without the perk, it does just under 37,000. Then with the perk, it's going to be 70.4,000, which is a lot more, almost 2x DPS. And now looking at the DPS over 2 magazines, first without the perk, shooting off 2 magazines of 6, so 12 shots. It's going to take quite a while. At roughly 11.113 seconds. And now we do the same thing, but first proc the Roadborn perk, which lasts for 10 seconds, which means we can do 2 entire magazines with the perk very easily, as you see right here. And that took 7.509 seconds. So DPS over 2 magazines without the perk will be 26.5 thousand. Then with the perk, it's still 44,000, which fell off quite a bit, but still a respectable number. Now look at the total reserves of this weapon. With no perks, it has 17 ammo, which means 417,000 without the perk. Then with the perk proc for all that ammo, it would be 511,000. So actually pretty good total damage output also. Now moving on to the 4th Horseman, which will once again have a damage perk just like the Chaperone, but this one's be a lot easier to do on any boss fight. Looking at the damage on Greg, the first shot hits for 14,974. Then if you shoot full auto at an enemy, every single bullet will do more and more damage. It's very hard to tell what's going on, but I made videos back in the day, and this is what the numbers are per shot. So it goes all the way up to an 86.9% increase on the 5th bullet, which is a lot more damage. And shooting 1 magazine takes 0.651 seconds, meaning the DPS of our 1 magazine is 163,000 DPS, which is a lot. It's not even close to anything else in the game. But then if you go over 2 magazines with 1 full reload, it's going to drop off a lot, now taking 3.638 seconds, meaning DPS over 2 magazines is still 58.5 thousand, but it fell off quite a bit. That still is a pretty good number. And this weapon also holds 16 ammo, which means the total damage output is only 334,000, which is pretty much the only weak point of 4th Horseman. Outside of that, its burst DPS is pretty much unmatched in the game. Then finally, the 3rd exotic we're going to look at is Izanagi's Burden, which was the DPS king pretty much since Shadowkeep until they nerfed it, and it hits 68,679 on Greg. And for the DPS numbers over 1 magazine, it's obviously going to be that number instantly, but if we do 2 shots, that's going to take quite a while because of the nerf at 3.5 seconds, meaning DPS over 2 shots is only 39,000, which is already not great. And since you can no longer increase the reload speed or sprint cancel or anything like that, every single time you reload, it's going to go down even more. So if we look at 4 shots, it's going to go down even more, like I said, now taking very long time at 9.895 seconds, meaning DPS falls to 27,763, which is pretty bad for exotic special weapon. And with no perks, this weapon holds 20 ammo, which means 5 honed edge times 4 shots, which is 343,000 total damage, which once again isn't that great either. So Izanagi's really fell off with that reload change nerf. So looking at these 3 different exotics, are all going to be useful in different scenarios. So starting off with Izanagi's Burden, its DPS isn't nearly what it used to be, but it's still going to be good for scenarios where you can kill stuff in 1 shot. So if there's ultras and even some bosses that you can kill in 1 shot each from your entire fire team, it's still going to be really good burst DPS. For example, one scenario that Izanagi's is still very good is for champions if you're on light or above light of the activity. For example, if you're doing a 1050 Nightfall, and pretty much everyone right now is above 1050, you can use 1 Divinity, then 2 Izanagi's Burden, and easily insta-kill every champion in the game. That way you don't have to worry about shield piercing rounds and things like that. But once you're below the light level of the activity that you're playing, Izanagi's Burden is no longer that great for champions, and that's when I recommend using something like Ehroar's Vow or even Anarchy. Then you have the 4th Horseman, which is still the king of burst DPS. Over 1 magazine, 163,000 DPS. That is actually crazy. So anything that can die in one magazine, obviously that's going to be among the highest burst damage in the game. Then even if you can kill something in 2 magazines, that is still really good DPS at roughly 60,000. The major downfall of 4th Horseman is its total damage output. It can do all its damage very quickly, but if the thing doesn't die, then you're just out of ammo, then you're just kind of sitting there doing nothing. So what I would recommend doing if you're using 4th Horseman right now is pair it with the Dark Drinker 2.0 and pretty much shoot 1 magazine of 4th Horseman, then pull out your sword and swing and do that. That way you take advantage of the burst of the 4th Horseman, but then you have the good sustained DPS of the sword. So that's still a good combo. Then finally we have the Chaperone, which is actually really good. Once you proc its perk, its DPS is actually really high, even over 2 magazines. And the perk actually lasts for 10 seconds, so it's actually realistic to have it for boss fights, unlike some other perks in the game that only last for 3 or 4 seconds. The one downfall of Chaperone is, once again, you have to be very close to enemies. It's a little bit better than most shotguns because it's a slug, but you still have to be up close and personal, and at that point, right now, it's hard to justify using that compared to the Dark Drinker 2.0, which does well over 60,000 DPS without needing its perk proc or anything like that. So even though Chaperone is really good right now, it's just hard to justify using it when it's in the same territory as Dark Drinker 2.0. Also in this video, I want to talk about legendary slug shotguns. I'm going to use this one for example because it's pretty much a god roll, full auto, then also swashbuckler. This one in particular has a power limit of 1060, which means I won't be able to use it in in-game activities after this season, but as future seasons come out, I'm sure there'll be more and more slugs. So just for comparison purposes, looking at this DPS on Greg, it's only hit for 23,380, which is a little bit lower than Chaperone, but now we get a melee kill and get a swashbuckler times 5. It's actually going to hit higher at 31,166 per shot, which is going to be that 33.3% increase that Swashbuckler is, and it's actually going to be hitting more per shot than Chaperone with its perk. Looking at the rate of fire over 1 magazine, it's going to take 4.122, which means the DPS over 1 magazine without the perk is 34,000. With Swashbuckler times 5, it's going to be 45.3 thousand, which is actually pretty good for a legendary special weapon in the game. And over 2 magazines, it's going to be hard to have Swashbuckler over both magazines, but what you can do is have it for the first, then it'll probably drop off for the second. And that took 10.913 seconds, meaning the DPS is going to be somewhere between 25 and 34,000, which is not that great, but it's pretty much in line with most of the other legendary specials in the game. Like other special weapons, you can pair this with Anarchy, which means the DPS will go up to almost 60,000 over 1 magazine, then over 2 magazines, 48.7 thousand, which is actually a pretty good combo build. And looking at the total damage output of this weapon, it holds 17 ammo, which means all the way up to 530,000 if you have Swashbuckler without 400,000 damage. So overall, once again, it's going to be hard to justify using a legendary slug shotgun right now for DPS, even if you pair it with Anarchy, because of the fact that that's taking up 2 of your weapon slots, and you still have to be really close range because you're using the slug shotgun as your main weapon in that combo. And when you have something like Dark Drinker 2.0 in the game, it's just gonna be hard to actually use that right now. And finally, the last thing in this video is a cool, silly Chaperone build I made. It's gonna start off with Chromatic Fire, which means any precision kill with our kinetic weapon will pretty much proc Dragonfly. Then we're going to be using heavy-handed, which means we're going to have pretty much infinite shotgun ammo. As you see, whenever you get kills surrounded by enemies with a shotgun, fusion, sidearm, or SMG, you get ammo back to the reserves of that weapon. And since we're going to be getting a lot of Chaperone kills, we're going to use quick charge, which means every double kill with a shotgun will become charged with light times 1. Then we're going to be using stacks on stacks. That way, every single time we do get a double kill with our shotgun, we get times 2 instead of times 1. Then finally, with our stacks of charge with light, we're going to use Font of Light, which is either the bugged or incorrect description of the mod. But what it does in reality is that chain lightning-like effect whenever you're near 3 or more enemies and take damage. So like I said, this build is just pretty silly. It's actually pretty good. You have the Roadborne perk up at all times with your Chaperone, which means whenever you get up to an ultra or major, you can kill it very easily. You also have Dragonfly when you use Chaperone, which is just something cool you can do. I love Chromatic Fire and I don't get that many chances to use it, so when I do, I definitely take advantage of it. Then as you're doing that and killing ultras and majors with a Chaperone, you're also becoming chargeable light, which means you're then take care of all the red bars near you. Whenever you take damage, it will do that chain lightning around you and pretty much kill all of them for you. So yeah, this is actually a pretty good build. It's definitely silly, but it actually gets the job done pretty well. So definitely try that out and mess around with it. You can also replace Chromatic Fire with just Trim versus Steps or any of the exotics on any of the other characters. Chromatic Fire isn't like make or break for this build. It's just something silly to do, and I like taking advantage of it whenever I can. And yeah, anyways, that's gonna be all for the video. The rest of the video will just be some strike gameplay with this build. Let me know what you think about the Slug Shotgun buff. Overall, I think it does make them useful compared to all the other legendaries in the game. It doesn't make them necessarily meta, but it makes them at least useful for the first time in PvE. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.